Welcome, everyone. Welcome. My name is Giovanni Machado Camacho. I am a Latino, Mexican American here. Grew up in Fontana, California, so not too far away from LA. Graduated 2019 with a double degree in psychology and sociology. So didn't plan to do that, but got it done. This panel is very dear to my heart. There's a lot of strong women in my life, and I and the committee I serve for ULAA, so the Latino Alumni Association. I'm the university chair, and we decided as a committee to do a two-series panel on Latinas and leadership. One of the reasons why we decided to do this was because I feel like there's so many strong women out there who are leaders in various markets, as you can see here. And I think it's important to not only share, what they have in store and how they got to where they are, where they are now, but I think it's important for us to kind of sense that we can do that as well, as we put our mind to, if we develop mentorships, and just keep an open mind and make sure that, you believe in yourself. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Cesar, who is our president for the Latino Alumni Association, and he's just going to say some remarks.
Awesome. Thanks, Gio, and great job putting this together. This is, I think, my fourth or fifth year volunteering with ULAA, and it's just been amazing to watch it grow over time, both on like alumni front and the student engagement front, as well as our volunteers. We have, I think, a few signature initiatives, one of them being like student engagement. So we do career panels every single quarter pretty much, and sometimes during the summer. We also partner up with the career panel to see how we can expand those resources to our students. And we also have a mentorship program, which launches in October and then runs through June. On the alumni engagement front, we do hikes, happy hours, special networking events. And then I would say one of the biggest initiatives for us is probably fundraising and providing scholarships. This year, we provided 13 scholarships, and I think about 8 or 9 of them are need-based. And the other ones are as well. And so I think over the next 3 to 4 years, we're awarding 125,000 in scholarships. And last year we raised approximately 200,000, and this year I think we're on track to raise just as much, probably a little bit more. Some of the other things that we do as a board is like meet on a monthly basis, and I just want to say that we all do it out of I think out of corazón and passion and just this like yearning to give back. So if any of you are interested in volunteering as a student or as an alumni, you can definitely check us out. I'll post our website and email and LinkedIn so you can connect with us. And really, I think everyone that's on the board, a volunteer, just wants to make a difference by providing their time and their resources and their network. Some of our upcoming events include this event, which is tonight. We have a hike on February 11th. In the Bay Area, we have some board members in the Bay Area, a lot of members in the Bay Area, so we're doing an event out there. And then on the 17th, we have a hike in Malibu Creek, which any of you are interested in attending, you're welcome to. And then I think there's going to be a part 2 of this career panel series. We're also, I think, hoping to do some fundraising dinners, a few more hikes, a few events specifically for the Orgulloso Mentorship Program cohort, which is alumni and students. And really quickly, I'll read our vision statement, which we came up with last year, thanks to the, I think, leadership of Andres and some of our other board members. So our vision is to be the premier alumni organization of UCLA that uplifts Latina Bruin achievements and celebrates our diverse and ever-evolving comunidad. Our core values are respect, belonging, collaboration, and adelante. And I think as we continue to evolve and grow and figure out how to do more fundraising, how to make a more significant impact on and off campus, I think we really want to stick to that vision and kind of make everyone, realize that, together we move a lot faster than if we try to do it on our own. So with that said, I don't have anything else. Again, thanks for joining everyone. Everyone as panelists, thank you for being a panelist. Andres and Gio, thank you guys for leading. The students who showed up today, thanks for showing up. It goes a long way. And then I'll drop some links in the chat in case any of you want to connect further or learn more about the Latino Alumni Association.
Thank you, Cesar. Awesome introduction. Yeah, so as he said, ULA does a lot of work. We're a volunteer organization, and we make sure that, we hear you guys, we listen to your needs, and making sure we create a comunidad, because, if it wasn't for the community at heart, then what would it be, right? So, yeah, so without further ado, I would like to present our moderator, Elizabeth Gonzalez. She's an awesome person, an awesome friend. She is the Hispanic-Serving Institute Director at UCLA. She's done a lot. She has a lot of initiatives. I'm surprised she did this today, but I'm glad she did. So without further ado, I present Dr. Elizabeth Gonzalez.
Buenas tardes. Good evening to everybody. I'm so excited. I have my tea, so I love that we're gonna have this plática with three amazing women. Before I introduce them, I do want to make a small pitch for our HSI efforts. If you want to learn more, we have an upcoming HSI Visioning Forum. So this is an opportunity for the campus, for the community, and you're part of that community as alumni, to learn more about the vision behind HSI. And we have two powerful women, Michelle Siqueiros, president of the Campaign for College Opportunity, as well as Dr. Sonia Zarate, senior scientist at the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, as well as a panel of students, faculty, and staff that are going to redefine what it means to represent Latino excellence. So that's February 22nd here at UCLA or via Zoom. So I hope that many of you will join us. Please RSVP in the link that Andres put in the chat. So with that said, of course, I wanted to say yes to moderating this panel and be surrounded by powerful Latinas. And so today we have three from a wide range of disciplines, but there's a common thread, I think, among the three of them. And I was just, in reading their bios, really amazed by how much they've given back to their comunidad and to the Latino community here in LA, in Los Angeles in particular. So we have Carissa Hernandez, who's a first-gen Chicana entrepreneur in a male-dominated space. So in her early career, she was a teacher in LA Unified. And that's what I mean by giving back. Several of you, I think, were teachers. And then after 2018 and the recession, she had to pivot and become an adult financial educator in order to support her community. And so I'm hopefully gonna hear more about that effort. But now she co-owns and operates the Legacy Full Circle Financial and Insurance Service. And she's also part owner of the cocktail and restaurant bar Nativo, which I'm gonna have to check out now. I know that ULA has had some events there as well. And she gives back. She's a mentor, and she tries to pass on the knowledge that she's developed as an entrepreneur to other first-gen Latinas. And she likes to call herself, an ambitious amiga to many and all of us. So hit her up if you're interested in learning from someone who's been an entrepreneur. Next, we have Stephanie Mora Reed, who also is an entrepreneur in her own right. She's co-founder of the Mija Books, which I see your logo. Maybe that's one of your stores, which is a multicultural bookstore and online resource for diverse and inclusive books. So she currently hosts multicultural and multilingual book fairs across LA. So again, bringing that literacy into our communities that is culturally relevant. And she was really inspired by the biracial identity of her daughter. And along with her husband, they created the Mija Books to amplify the stories by and about people of color. And, the book has received a lot of attention and acclaim for filling a gap, I think, in the literature, especially for our young ones. And so they've been featured on LA Times 65 best bookstores in LA. So I'm gonna have to check it out as well as a reader, as well as a number of newsroom stories about Mija books. So welcome, Stephanie. I can't wait to hear about your story. And lastly, we have Kimberly Rodriguez, who, again, a go-getter software engineer, and she's, has a track record actually of developing sophisticated, data-driven, and user-friendly web products. And she used to be actually part of the LA Mayor's office, working as a data program lead there. And now she's teaching at the University of Minnesota, also in web development. Also, I think one of her passions, again, that is a common thread among the three of them, is making sure that they are giving back to the data literacy in the community. And she's a proud alumni of UCLA, both UCLA Extension and then as an undergraduate, where she earned her BA in history here at UCLA. And so welcome to the three amazing Latinas here in this evening. So I wanted to just get us started, nothing too personal. I think, this picture that I have as a backdrop is the last Raza grad, the 50th Raza grad. And I think it was the largest in its history. And you see Poly Pavilion is huge. So take us back to your time at UCLA, thinking back about when you were a student here. What piece of advice would you give your younger self while you were here at UCLA, and why? Why would you tell your younger self that? And maybe we can start with Kimberly.
Sure. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me, and everyone here, Stephanie, Chris, happy to join you, awesome ladies. I would say if I take myself back, little Kim, or like my younger self, I was very stressed out about grades and making sure that I had the highest GPA possible. And so I would absolutely tell my younger self to focus not so much, grades are important, but they're not everything. So kind of embracing the learning experience and also building meaningful connections with others. And that is also important and relevant once you leave the institutional space or the educational space. One of those, there was two scenarios that kind of helped me out. I would say studying abroad in Spain and Morocco, I gained just opened up my world to just diverse cultures. And also I met some of my best and strongest friendships that I still carry with me today. And similarly, I studied abroad in Washington, DC, and, I got knowledge about our nation's capital and just learn about different political views, and just it broadened my perspective. And some of these experiences, even against family advice, I joined them and I did them because maybe my family didn't find value in them. But in the end, they were really crucial to moving forward in advancing in my career. So I would say, take it slow. Grades are important, but they're not everything. And and build meaningful connections with others.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. Much of that I would probably tell my younger self too. What about for you, Stephanie? What would you tell your younger self?
Yeah, it was actually kind of a good segue from Kimberly's note. I feel like when I entered UCLA, I was a really shy kid, and I feel like I grew up in a bubble in my community. I grew up in Downey and Paramount area. And so, we didn't venture much out of our hometown. And looking back on it, wish I would have taken more opportunities that are available at UCLA, like the ones Kimberly mentioned about studying abroad and especially the travel opportunities. I felt like those weren't for me. Like that was just the whole world that, our community didn't take part of as a Latina, middle-class family. So I wish I would have taken more of those opportunities while I was a student at UCLA, because there are so many. So take advantage of those for sure. And like Kimberly said, it's just about broadening your horizons and your perspective about the world. So there's so much value in those, and that's what I would have done more of.
Yeah. Well, on a personal note, I can relate because I don't regret much about my time at UCLA, but I do regret not studying abroad. That's my first point. And the second is that our esteemed alumni, Andres Snyder, he knows the impact. He also thinks study abroad is such an impactful experience. So him and his family, the Snyder Garriga family, have established a study abroad scholarship. So he has put some of that information in the chat. But yes, like, you know, talk about wanting us to, you know, support this new generation in experiencing something that we either experienced or wanted to experience. So Andres, thank you.
I'm honored to be part of this organization, and thanks for recognizing that, Liz.
Yeah. What about you, Carissa? What do you what would you give what advice would you give your younger self?
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you to Latino Bruin Association for having me tonight. It's always an honor to be here sharing space with other Latinas who are thriving. It's my passion to see LA Latinas doing their thing. So thank you for having me. I think that looking back at the course of my life and being a student at UCLA, as a first generation student, I think we face unique challenges, right? We figured out how to get into an institution of higher education. We figured out how to get into UCLA. And for many of our parents, that's the American dream. And so you're carrying the weight of your parents' vision and dreams and almost your community. And so this pressure sometimes can be overwhelming, but it's beautiful at the same time. And I think that I would tell my younger self to just trust the process. Like, trust the process. Life has a way of just guiding you to where you're supposed to be, and enjoy every moment. Stay in the present and know that the universe is going to guide you and get you where you need to be. I studied sociology and education, two things that I absolutely do not do today. But it was important for my process as a leader. Everything I learned about sociology made me a social conscious business entrepreneur. And my teaching days really taught me about the different personalities and how to manage that. And they've really lent to the success that we've had with entrepreneurship. So that's the advice I would give myself and to other younger, beautiful women, to trust the process and not put too much pressure on yourself.
Carissa, I feel like that's good advice for me right now. Thank you for sharing that. Well, talking a little bit about that, like the process and the journey, and maybe sometimes you don't know how it's all going to connect. I wanted to, delve a little deeper about how you've arrived to this moment, like this version of who you are now, successful, like, you all seem very well rooted, and it's and really it's still the beginning of something much bigger. Like, you're still becoming, right? But you're in a good place, it seems. So I wanted to hear from you about a little bit about what's been your journey to arriving here, and what have been those critical moments in your life that have been pivotal moments, or, I'm a psychologist, so I talk about them as identity salient experiences, maybe like events or people or just decisions that you've made that really got you to where you are today. So this is a big question, but I'm gonna, I don't know if any of you want to jump in and kind of tell us about your journey and what were those maybe one or two critical pivotal moments.
Sure, I can jump in. I would say the one that stands out the most, and I think has led me to where I am right now, is working in tech and as a software engineer. I would say there was a time while I was working in the LA's mayor's office, I was recruited internally to be part of the mayor's inaugural innovation team, which exposed me to like an array of different fields that I wasn't exposed to before. Before that, I was very much about like research and policy. They were my comfort zone. So I kind of stayed in that realm of work. This opportunity then propelled me to delve into like data in analytics, design thinking, and eventually after my time with the mayor's innovation team, I was asked to then lead a data citywide initiative, which made me become more of a leader because I had more responsibilities, a lot more pressure citywide, where these things or these projects had to succeed beyond just my immediate, maybe internal focus. So that experience alone made me realize like the importance of technology or having these technological skills to present information in a better way that made decision making for higher ups more tangible and more specific. And so it was useful for me to realize, okay, what is my added value? What is different that I can offer to the table that maybe I hadn't had before? And so it led me to also realize there's opportunities that are going to lead me to having more value as I continue building my career in tech. And so all that to say was diversifying my skill set was key, opening up new opportunities for myself, because I saw that people with more technological skills were invited to more meetings, were asked to do more projects, were, getting themselves in different spaces and doors, and therefore more promotions. So that led me to realize, okay, I need to expand my horizons, not be so narrow focused, and therefore just help me, build my career and just overall like vantage point of opportunities. That's what I would say helped me get to where I am today. And it just started very small and then rolled out from there.
Yeah, it sounds like it took a lot of courage to kind of push your own boundaries, right?
An opportunity, I would say too. Like, people have to be open to give you opportunities. I was the only one in my immediate group that was selected, the only Latina, the only research. And I think having the UCLA title and not necessarily having a background in technology, right? Like, I was a history major, did urban planning and labor and workplace studies. So these were more of the social sciences, but I had you learn from other people that you work with. I was working with data scientists, so I would ask questions. I would be super curious. So just having that intellect or initial curiosity to not be afraid and kind of show up and take up space has really helped me in that pivot.
Mm-hmm. I love that. There, Andres, we were at a panel, I think, with Lena Hines, I think. And in that panel, Andres said, not only do we need to take up space, but we need to own the space, right? So Carissa or Stephanie, you're owning the space, right? You're these entrepreneurs. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what was the pivotal moment?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm probably the poster case for pivots. I studied cognitive science and gerontology at UCLA, and gerontology was my passion. I worked as a student at UCLA, and then my first job after graduating, I was in gerontology, working with seniors. And the first big pivot for me was deciding that the 9-to-5 life wasn't for me, that I wanted to venture out and become an entrepreneur. And that's a really big decision to make. It helped that it's kind of a bittersweet situation where my last job was very traumatic, and it led to a workers' compensation lawsuit and severance package. It was a whole ordeal. And it lasted a couple years. So it was a really traumatic experience for me, and that kind of was the final deciding factor to say, like, this life is not for me, I can't handle this anymore, and decided to start my own business, still within the realm of gerontology. I took all of the skills that I had learned from UCLA, the courses that I took there, from the years that I'd been in the field of gerontology, figured out what I provided best in that space, and built my first company in 2016, based on that experience and all the skills that I had acquired and attained, working in various facilities. But then the pandemic hit, and my business was pretty much completely shuttered because of the pandemic. And it fairly quickly, I realized that the business in general wasn't going to be quite the same ever again. And financially, I needed to make a decision, right? Was I going to kind of, struggle through that and figure it out, or did I need to make another big pivot? And I decided to make another big pivot and completely changing career paths and starting this bookstore. And a lot of that had to do with my daughter. She was turning 1 at the height of the pandemic. And as you mentioned, she's biracial, and I'm Latina, my husband's Black. And so that was, I feel like, the biggest pivot I've ever made in my life, is completely leaving behind what I learned at UCLA, what I built, for many, many years, and deciding to go into a new direction, mostly because of my daughter. So that was like the quick journey of where I am right now.
Another courageous. So I feel like ingredient number 1, like courage,
Yeah.
and it sounds like, you were fulfilled, and it's attached to your daughter as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. Carissa, tell us about your journey and those pivotal moments.
Yes, thank you. So, I got my education master's from UCLA, and I was excited to become a teacher. My background was in activism, and I thought that I'd go out there, change the world by educating our youth and raising future leaders. And I absolutely loved my time as a teacher. And as a matter of fact, there's days I still miss it. But something very, one of those aha moments happened during my teaching career. And that was that my dad, after 30 plus years of dedicating his life to building someone's business, decided to retire. And this is someone that I loved, I looked up to as my superhero, and he dedicated so much commitment to his work to provide for his family. So it was a hard pill to swallow for me when I saw that my dad overnight went from making a certain amount of money and ending up with just a fraction of it, because he thought Social Security was what you retire on in this country. And so for me, it was really important, especially as someone who was just getting their career started, and making sure that there was some sort of pension or retirement, or what does that mean and what does that look like? Because, we go through so many years of education, yet we don't really have access to information when it comes to financial literacy. So I took it upon myself just to study for myself and understand what it was and how money works. And I just got so intrigued by it. And I thought, my God, so many people need to know this. And as people would see me on my nutrition breaks and lunch breaks at work studying, because I said, well, why not get licensed and manage my own accounts? It doesn't hurt. And then they started bringing their statements, like, I know you're studying for this. Can you look at my statement? And then before you knew it, someone referred a friend who referred a friend who referred a friend. And so I thought, my goodness, there's a need. There's a gap in this field. And it was a very hard decision for me, because I absolutely love teaching, where I had to decide, do I continue teaching, or do I move into this realm in the financial industry and bring this information to people like my mom and dad and the families that reflect my family? And so I decided, after a lot of praying and meditation, that it was my life's purpose to jump into this journey that I went on. And so that was in 2008, we started our company. And so, 17 years later, am I doing the math right? We've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of families from financial literacy and raising awareness in the community. We've recently gotten a contract with the city of Los Angeles to host these workshops throughout the east side of Los Angeles, and really empower communities by bringing education when it comes to financial literacy and accessibility, which is so important. And a lot of people are like, hey, so how did this financial girl end up running bars? And, finances can be very black and white. And my husband and I love cocktails and craft beer. And so that's what we do on our free time. And so we would see these concepts here, and we love to travel to Mexico, where our families are from. And we're just like, God, this is such a cool concept. Like, people need to see this in LA. I feel like it's such a cool reflection to bring a little bit of Mexico and add that urban element and open a space that just validates us and makes us nostalgic with the food, the flavors of the cocktails, the music that we play, the way that we create the ambiance. So we decided to also take the jump into the bar industry, knowing nothing, like nothing. And I think that was probably the best thing, is knowing what we did, or not knowing what we didn't know. Because I don't know that we would have done it if we knew how like complex this world is. So we started with our first bar in 2015, and then opened 4 bars, after each other. I'll talk about a little later how the pandemic affected that, but we were having fun and really just creating spaces where our community could feel seen and safe and validated. And so those were the pivots of life and how we got here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Even like Stephanie, right? That it's a need in our own families. And then you realize, well, the whole community needs this. And okay, so now I know what this legacy full circle financial and insurance service is. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for sharing a little bit about those pivotal moments that aren't planned, but you managed through courage to make it a good pivotal moment that led you to where you are today. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what Carissa, you kind of hinted at this, like you didn't really know what you were getting into, and so that was probably a good thing. In that instance, but sometimes we do. Sometimes there are some expectations about, oh, if I'm going to climb the ladder, like this is how it's going to go. And everybody always gets asked, what's your 5-year plan, or what's your 10-year plan? And people expect you to know what your pathway is. So I wanted to ask a little bit about that, like expectations versus reality. So thinking about your professional journey, what were some expectations that you had when you first entered these leadership roles? And then how did that contrast with like the actual reality, like once you were in it, like positive, negative? Yeah, so thinking about that. And I don't know if I want to pick on Stephanie. Do you want to talk? And I don't know about Mika's book or any other aspect of your journey, because you mentioned several leadership roles.
Yeah, I mean, they were both, me starting my own business. So I feel like that's kind of the perspective that I would answer in, and that, when I started both of my businesses, I honestly didn't know what to expect. I just knew that I didn't want the life that I previously had. I would say, and I knew that by owning my own business, I'd be able to set the rules for everything, right? I didn't have to be accountable to anybody but myself. And that's honestly probably the most difficult thing that I've come to discover, is being accountable to myself. And that's, what I'm still working on, trying to build systems for self-accountability. And I found out, just because of my personality, that I struggle with that. And my husband helps me a lot with that. He's also an entrepreneur. He started his own law firm. He's now really successful with that. And so he's always sharing tidbits and advice that he's, learned along the way as well. So he's kind of my accountability partner. And I feel like that's something that I had to learn along the way, that I wasn't necessarily expecting in the beginning, that I wouldn't be able to, that I'd struggle with that part of it, So I'd say that's the biggest thing for me.
It's hard to be your own boss.
Yeah.
You want to be a good boss to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kimberly? There's a lot of questions in the chat, which we will get to, but what about this field of data analytics? What were some expectations that you had versus what actually turned to be true?
Sure. So data analytics was, I guess, ultimately my first pivot, and then into coding was my second. I would say I initially thought I love working with data because you gain to, ultimately look at the data and, get intimate with it, gain some insights, and then turn this insights into information that can be really valuable to your organization, that you can figure out where to allocate resources and funding, and you kind of become a power leader in a lot of the big decision-making processes that even the mayor in this case or general managers have access in the time when I was in the city. But then I also realized that through my data literacy efforts, where it went citywide, where we did a lot of educational efforts around the open data portals that people have access to, and they didn't even know they were just hiding in the four walls of City Hall. And like you can tell where like the money is going, like how much money is being, allocated to the zoo, how much money in sanitation, your trash cans, things that you don't even think about, they just take for granted. But then, having this information, I also realized like, how do you like wrap it up in a nice bow or deliver some kind of user interface that people are not diving into day to day, like find engaging. So figuring out software engineering like platforms and like sites that you can use to filter that data and display nice dashboards that turn rows and columns into beautiful, pie charts or charts that are just more visibly present, and people can take that information, really got to me, because it took like 2-3 seconds for decision makers to know, okay, like this is where we put the money, or this is where we deploy these resources, or this is where we add more personnel to a X cost. So that led me to realize like I want to be, I also am kind of impatient. So I'm like, the more things we can make things efficient, the better. So technology in my case is like one of those ways. So I would say once I made it to software engineering, or the whole idea of, I went to the extension program at UCLA where I learned software engineering through the web development course. And I originally thought like coding is so hard, it's hard, and it's gonna be hard, it's probably a lot of math. And I'm like, I don't have any of that. But then I realized like, it's not hard, it's just a lot of work. Like if you're willing to put in the work, it requires, time in the saddle, as they call it in engineering. Like you have to be coding. Coding is a contact sport. You have to be engaged, and you have to think through algorithms, and you have to, really logically think in a way that maybe you didn't think about it before. So I realized that early on. And I also, to be kinder to myself, to Stephanie's point, to the idea of like you're in your own owner, or like you own your own business, but also you own your own journey. And so the idea of like, I need to be kind to myself and know that I'm not going to know everything, and no one knows everything. Even like the more senior engineer people that I work with, they don't know everything. They also resort to Google or ChatGPT or whatever resources are available to you. You just have to be resourceful. I think you have to be willing to put yourself out there, and ultimately just trust that you'll find the solutions to the problem. So that's what I would say that I didn't know, that I'm glad I didn't know, but now I know better.
I love it. Cesar or Gio, if you post this, I want that as a quote. Like you are your own, you own your own journey. I love that. It's beautiful. And what about for you, Carissa?
I think that going through school, I was always like a good student, and what I learned in school was, okay, I'm at point A, I need to get to point B. These are all the steps that I take, and then I get there. And that was true. I had a game plan, I played to it, and it got me to where I needed to be. The real world taught me that everything's unpredictable. With our craft beer and craft cocktail bars, we were thriving. We had multiple of them, and we had this vision of like, okay, how do we keep this going? And then the pandemic hit, and it was something that was just completely out of our control. There was nothing I could do. And we were in one of the most severely affected industries with the amount of shutdowns that we had to undergo through the city of LA. We weren't allowed to sell alcohol without selling food. I never had a restaurant component to my bars, but I'm a first-gen kid who knows resilience and survival. So let's learn restaurant on the fly and try and figure out how we're going to survive this. And you know, the unpredictability just started kind of settling in with anxious feelings and a little bit of like, what's going to happen next? And what I've learned is that you just have to believe in yourself and your vision and just, you know, trust that you have in you to get you where you need to be. And so I think that was the reality check. And now I've become very comfortable with the unpredictability, with the unknowing, and knowing that I have to be quick on my feet at all times and know how to pivot and trust that I have everything within me, things that I've learned through life, leadership, to figure out what's next. You know, what's next? Where do we go from here? And just be okay with the flow.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because it really highlights the positives of being first gen, right? That, like you said, you're resourceful, you don't know how to do it, but you're gonna learn and on the fly, right? And I think we need to center more of those the strengths of being first gen, right? Sometimes, yes, there's challenges, of course, but it also comes with a lot of resilience. So I appreciate you highlighting that in your answer. I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit and just, you know, you all are like amazing mujeres and you're handling and, you know, any challenges, it just seems like you're able to pivot. But you know, they say like, if you want to own your year, own the month. If you want to own the month, own the day, right? If you want to own the day, you own your morning. So I wanted to talk about like, how do you make it through a day to then make it through a year and eventually to get you to where you are? Like, maybe go a little bit more micro. What does a typical day look like for an entrepreneur, for a data science, a coder, like a data person, a web developer? What's your typical day? And throughout the day, like, what are some of the key decisions that you have to be making? And how do you make those decisions on your typical day? So, Carissa, you know, I know you just finished telling us, but tell us, like, it just seems like being in a male-dominated industry, like, I just want to know about your typical day.
Yeah, thank you. I think that for me, I just have this very, what's the word I'm looking for? So like, I'm very dedicated to my morning routine. Like I think that during the pandemic, something that really stood out to me was that my teams, I'm very team centered, and I couldn't do what I do without the amazing teams that I work with. And for me, for them to stick through a pandemic in all businesses and trust my leadership and my decisions was so important to me that I thought, my God, I owe it to my team to be the best leader and the best version of myself that I could possibly be, to make proper decisions that are going to affect them and their families. So that meant a lot to me. And so I took a lot of time figuring out what my morning routine would look like to get me in the right place to start my day. And so I'm very, very, very protective of that hour to 2 hours that I have, where I wake up, I meditate, I journal, I put on aromatherapy, peppermint, it boosts your mood. And then I either do my Peloton and I lift weights. Once I'm done with my workout, I walk my dog, Canelo, who I love. And I listen to an audiobook, and my audiobook is all about positivity. And so not only did I like boost my endorphins on a natural, but I've also like listened to a little bit of positivity, and now I'm ready to take on the day. Because it's a tough world out there, and especially in male-dominated industries, it's dog eat dog. And so how do we approach that? And so from that point, you know, I head into my office and I am very, very, very strict about my Google Calendar. I share it with my team. I share it with my personal assistant so that everyone knows where I'm at all times and how to find me, right? And when I cannot answer and how, you know, what my day looks like. My meetings, my Zoom meetings, they're structured. I make sure that I also make time for my team so that they have direction. So we check in, make sure everyone knows what we're doing and what our goals are, what the objectives are, and we all play to our strengths. I'm huge on that. I tell everyone, look, if we all play to our strengths, you know, we don't have the resources some of the bigger people do. We don't have the funding some of the bigger, you know, players do. But if we play to our strengths, we can make some noise. And so it's just getting people to buy into the vision and trust that. And then we get out there and we do our thing. And they love it. They love that type of direction and leadership. So I think just also just being positive throughout your day. If you start feeling like your energy starts shifting, get out, you know, go look at, one of my favorite things is just to stand and watch a tree move, like the leaves dancing with the wind. And it just reminds me that, you know, we're just a little tiny particle in this huge universe and everything's going to be okay. And then I feel better and I can go back and attack my day. And I think just being balanced, it takes a long time to get there, but I cannot stress the importance of finding that balance, you know, whether it's like formulating, you know, some friendships that you have in your workplace or businesses, routines that help you kind of shift your energy back to where it needs to be, and just being structured. You know, I think that we talked about accountability to yourself, especially as an entrepreneur. I think that's one of the things that I struggled with in the beginning was, how do I find a routine? Because as a teacher, it's structured for you, you know, from 7 to 8 is period 1, from 9 to 10 is nutrition, whatever the case is. There's no one doing that for you when you're out on your own. You're doing it for yourself and you're doing it for your family, and finding that deeper purpose that you're doing it for your community. And then that's where you find that motivation to show up, not just for yourself, but for your community every single day.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for just the detail in your morning. I hopefully I was taking notes. I'm going to definitely get that peppermint, because it's true. Like, you got to be okay if you're being asked to then lead, you know, lead a group of people, and, you know, to be a leader, you have to be inspiring, you have to be grounded, you have to be positive. So so much of what you said resonates. What about for you, Stephanie? What's your typical day look like? What are some of those key decisions, and how do you ground yourself?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Carissa on having a strict morning routine. It's the start of your day and it needs to start well. Yeah, my day usually starts at 5:30 in the morning, and the very first thing that I do is 5 to 10 minutes of just stretching to like spa music. It's something that I started recently. I'm 7 months pregnant right now, so I need the stretching as like more than just for my job. And so I also dedicate the morning an hour to 2 hours every morning just for me and checking into my staff. I'm really strict with my Google Calendar as well, and not being able to, I don't take any client meetings before 10 a.m. because I've discovered about myself that my mind works more efficiently in the AM hours, early AM hours. So I know that I need to get important things done in the beginning of the day. You know, meetings I can take in the afternoons. So that's usually throughout the day. I have a lot of client meetings with schools as we do school book fairs. So I'm always meeting with new schools across LA County, and we're currently expanding into San Bernardino County. And then I also check in with my staff. I have a full-time salesperson. I have a part-time social media manager. I have part-time warehouse staff. So it's all about checking in, like Carissa mentioned, you know, getting the tasks assigned for the day and checking in with staff is an important part of the day. And then all of the other, most of my day is at a computer responding to a million emails. So that's that takes up a lot of it. It's a lot of planning for our events that are coming up. We do dozens of events throughout the year, and that's growing and expanding. And right now we're in a process of scaling our business. So we're jam-packing even more events every single week. So it's a lot of planning and coordinating schedules with our delivery team, with my staff, with inventory control. So that's all of like the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day.
Yeah, you're managing yourself. So much
Yeah.
of it has to be focused on you. It's great that you know yourself so well though. Like I could, like you said, I could tell that my prime peak time is this time to this time. And so I just feel like even arriving to that sense of self-awareness is one. And two, like owning it and not apologizing and just saying like, I'm just not available till after 10 or so forth. So what about for you, Kimberly?
Sure, I would have to credit my fourth grade teacher who gave me my first agenda. That was like from like 6 a.m. to like the night day, all by like not only the hours, but like half hours. But anyways, I was been writing in my agenda, and the idea of like don't walk into your day like an accident or into your week like an accident was something like, okay, I was always very organized. I enjoyed writing into my agendas, even while at UCLA. I think I managed to do the study abroad programs and so in other programs because I was so meticulous about writing everything down and making time for as much as I could. So yeah, I live and die just like Carissa by my Google Doc calendar. And if I send the calendar, it's just not happening. And I tell that to everybody. So like send me an invite. I'll be there or I'll make it happen. Just send it to me. But I also like to write things down. So I do a little bit of a hybrid. I would say my day starts early too. I work with the global team. So some of my members or group members and fellow coders are either in Ireland or in India. So depending on that time frame that they're in, I sometimes have to wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 or 7, depending. We have stand-up meetings, but I try to definitely allocate my early morning to meditation, to working out, and to just centering myself. Depending also, so I do stand-up meetings, we do parking lots, I do a lot of coding, we work at tickets, we figure out what's working, what's not working, we talk to the product managers, we talk to the C-suite folks and figuring out what needs to be done in at what time, and we work in 2-week sprints. So just a lot of planning internally within the team. And then later at night, depending on the given weeknight, I also teach. So I then enter a full room just similar to this one with a lot of students and a professor. So then we go into a lot of the full stack engineering materials from JavaScript to React and backend, front end, whatever it is that we're teaching at that given moment. So it's a lot of energy given to Zoom. So I do, like Carissa mentioned, sometimes I do walk out and step out and look at the flowers growing and the birds chirping and just the flower and the butterflies. It just gives me a sense of like, oh God, like I'm here and there's other things growing and I'm okay and things are gonna work out because there's just so much activity happening and you're responsible for so much and people depend on you. So being around nature really grounds me. And I also, when there's also times when I do therapy, I have a therapist that I've been going to for 3 years, and just having therapy definitely helps me with my mental health. Having someone or having an allocated hour to talk about X, Y, or Z that's going on in your life just really puts perspective into a lot of things that in my mind could be so big, but ultimately, as you look into it and dig, they're not that big. So it's just having a lot of other, I guess, tools in my toolbox that I didn't have before in this time of my life have really helped me maintain and organize and also leave room for magical moments, right? Like when the weekend is my weekend, I try not to have anyone step into it and enjoy with my family and friends. So have a little bit of that balance, as mentioned before.
Great. Now we all have like a wide range of strategies for how to start our day that set us up well for, I think, making difficult decisions throughout the day or leading teams or being your best self so that you can show up. And, you know, that's how you create Latina leaders. You know, I wanted to ask too, like, you know, whether it be throughout the day or maybe just even throughout your journey, there's moments, going back to this idea of pivoting, where you have to make a decision, but you have to sometimes compromise, right? Decisions aren't often black or white. So I wanted to ask a little bit about your decision-making process and how you arrive to a compromise, and what are some of the guiding values or principles that help you make a decision when sometimes there isn't a right or wrong decision, right? So I guess getting to know more of the value system and the principles that guide you as you decide whether to start a new business or whether to take on a team or how to lead a team. I guess I'm wondering, what are some of those principles or values that help you make decisions? Let's see, anyone eager? Stephanie, why don't you share with a little bit about what are some of those values?
Yeah, I mean, it's a broad question, but I feel like it's always about, at the end of the day, at least for somebody that owns a business, right? What is going to be the most efficient decision? What's going to progress your business, right? It's all about always trying to grow and scale my business. At least that's where I am right now. So whatever decision is made, it has to be made for literally the survival and health of your business, right? You kind of have to take any sort of emotional or feelings away from decision making. So yeah, it's I feel like that's the number one crucial thing. A lot of people, especially when you own your own business, you feel like it's your baby, and you know, there's certain things that you feel like you'll never want to change about it. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to have a fruitful, you know, lifelong or healthy business, it's about what's best for the business, not necessarily what your vision of the business is, right? And so that's, I feel like, the perspective that I'm coming from, if that makes sense.
I love how much clarity there is in your answer. Like, you know, even that, having clarity as to what is your guiding light, what is your guiding principle, says a lot as well. How about you, Carissa? What are some of those things that help you make tough decisions?
You know, I'm blessed in the sense that my husband, not only my best friend, but also my business partner. And we have this exercise that we go through when we have to make tough decisions. And it's asking each other, is it good for the business? Is it good for the team? And is it good for the community? If we feel that we answered yes, the majority of those questions, and it's something that we feel confident moving forward with. And we're such like team-centered leaders that we also run it by our leaders on our team and making sure that we're all on the same page and hearing feedback, because, you know, maybe someone's perspective will highlight something that we didn't see. And them being kind of the heads in each particular location, we trust the input. So it's really a team effort when it comes to making tough decisions. And it's worked out for us, you know, and I, like I said earlier, I credit the team a lot for the success that we've had as a business.
I love that, multiple layers, and I imagine that was tough, right? In COVID, when you're having to make this, like, it takes time to consult the team, but in COVID, it was like, we need to know now. Or how did you do it then?
It was so hard. Like, I always tell people that sometimes I feel like I still have PTSD from COVID as a bar owner. Like, it was just one of the most intense times, because you're not just faced with like business decisions, but you're also faced with people's health concerns, you know, and the fear of, we didn't have the luxury of work from home. It was like, okay, we open our doors, wear this face shield, and like, let's do this. So it was just making sure that they really trusted the decisions that were being made, and that we had the best intentions in mind, and that we were going to get through it together, and we were going to look out for each other. So it was a lot of quick on your feet decisions, and incorporating the team that did decide to stick it through and ride that crazy wave. So I'm really grateful to a lot of them who are still with us and trusted us throughout that entire process. So it was very tough times for a lot of people. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. What about for you, Kimberly? What are some of those guiding principles and values that help you?
Sure, I would say I appreciate my work-life balance. I do have the privilege of working from home. So anything that aligns with that decision is always key. I don't try to compromise. Resonates with also my long-term goals. I want to be, in the future, when becoming a parent, I also want to be a present for my family. So I want to have been able to have like a hybrid-like work model. So I always try to make those decisions thinking of that. I would say responsible with my finances. I think to Carissa's point, like if you know your finances very well, you are able to make bolder decisions, and it aligns with, like, for me, it's like, what can I not compromise on, and maybe don't take an extra project, or don't take an extra, or I'm not happy in this situation, so I have options and I have choices, and having that extra pocket of funding or healthy funding has definitely allowed me to make bolder choices and guides my decisions as to what I can and cannot do. And so, yeah, I would say work-life balance, having strong financial, healthy buckets that can give me that freedom that I want to not compromise if when I don't need to.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim. And well, thank you all for, just sharing your insight about at the end of what's the bottom line? Like what's the threshold that makes you go a certain way on a decision and kind of guide your compromises. I know we have a lot of questions on the Q&A, so we want to make ample time to answer some of those. So I wanted to wrap up with UCLA becoming an HSI, and people ask me all the time, like, what does that mean? And when I see students all the time, and I look at them, and I swear, I think, wow, if you got into UCLA, you are our next president, our next, next founder of a global international, in business. I just see them and I see greatness, right? But and as alumni, what would you say UCLA, or just in general, what does higher ed need? What else can we give to make sure that all of our Latino first gen, low-income students, that they reach that potential, and that we foster more Latina leaders, more Latino leaders, like yourselves? And where do you think we need to be investing? And
I don't mind. I think that the Latino Alumni Association has done a beautiful job in creating opportunities where alumni can come back and mentor some of our first gen students. I know that would have made a tremendous difference for me, because, being the first to go to college in my entire family, I didn't know who to ask questions. I didn't know how to navigate the college system. Or figure out what should I be majoring in, and what happens after I graduate, and how do I prepare to get a job, because I don't have experience, but I have this degree. So I think that access to mentorship is huge. Also, just having these spaces where there's, a Latino Chicana student resource center where we can come together and share our experiences and feel validated, feel seen, have a community that supports one another in terms of home life and school life and careers, and having access to even these types of panels, which I think are amazing and very necessary. I didn't have the privilege of being able to sit in on a Latina panel, to hear what happens in life after college, that would have maybe made some decision making different for me. And so I think that these spaces are so necessary, and I commend all of you for taking time to organize this, to participate, to tune in. I'm just grateful to be a part of this.
And Carissa, I'm taking notes because we are in the middle of that. Our students have been asking for a Latino Success Center that will do exactly what you just described. So, you know, I hope that if we need an alumni's voice, I know where to go. Thank you for sharing that. Stephanie or Kimberly, what do you think will help us manifest that vision?
Go ahead, Kimberly.
Go ahead. Okay, so thank you. I would echo that, because I also didn't have this, you know, potential, like just learning from other Latinos, you know, figuring it out as they go, or like knowing that it's okay to not know, and just having this perspective. I was not aware. This was not something I didn't have. So I would say I also didn't know that. I thought, I have a UCLA degree, I'm gonna get a job right away. Like my job is gonna be waiting for me when I graduate. Like this diploma is gonna give me a job. It doesn't happen like that. So I'm like, I wish someone would have told me, like, internships are so critical. So if there's more internship ability, connecting that real life practice experience, like that real world experience, like go and do an internship or do 3 or 4, that would be so critical to building a resume, I would say. Another one would be having some kind of, I know you mentioned mentoring, but also the idea of, I don't know, these key steps, like looking at your LinkedIn, looking at your resume, really digging into how do you interview, where to look for opportunities, how to network. Some people are really shy. Like I know I was shy. I was like, I know how to do these book smart stuff, but how do I talk to people about what I do? And how do I come to them without them knowing that I want a job, but I do want a job? But it's like this weird dance that you're doing. And you also want to look professional. And so having those real tangible practical skills where you're okay, like that center, right, that you're building, where people can actually test these theories out, I think are critical. And also as a woman, like how do you present yourself as a woman of color in this space? It's totally different from maybe your male counterparts. And yeah, just having that, I would say, would be a step up from what I know I had access to when I was there.
Thank you, Kimberly. Stephanie, you want to close those out?
Yeah, I mean, definitely echo all of what Carissa and Kimberly said for sure. But I would say also, most importantly, and this, Carissa, I commend you for doing this, is the financial literacy part of everything. At the end of the day, financial literacy is important to be a member of planet Earth, right? And so it's everything from your personal finances to business finances. So I think having a lot more workshops available, especially for, I'm sure, I think Carissa, you said, you know, coming as a first gen and not having necessarily maybe the best role models for financial literacy, you know, where do you turn to? What resources do you have, right? And so I think just the very basics as far as understanding personal finances, and then on the business side of it, I think everybody should take an intro to business class, you know? And so I think having those workshops and opportunities specifically to learn financials in both personal and business are really important.
Thank you all for sharing and opening up a little bit about your journey, those pivotal moments, the hard decisions, your morning routines, and sharing your advice about what you would like to see for us to foster more Latina leaders like yourself. And so thank you, and I hope to see you in the flesh sometime at UCLA, or you know, we'll check out Nativo, Carissa's, we'll buy some books from Mija. I pass it over to Andres, who's gonna moderate the Q&A.
Thank you, Liz. I just want to thank Liz for doing such a great job moderating these panels. She's just amazing, and for just bringing out all of the personal stories and the professional accomplishments of these very, very talented and powerful women. It's inspiring, and thank you, Liz, for helping bring all that out. And of course, thank you to all the panelists. It's a real honor to just be in the same space with you. I'm an investor now. I'm very fortunate to invest, and I would invest in each of you without doubt. I think you guys have just everything it takes. We have so many questions that we're not going to be able to get to all of them. So I've just been taking notes here and trying to organize them. And I'll try to direct them to folks that I think might be in a great position to say a few words about them. One is when you hear such great journeys of success, it makes it sound as if risk-taking was easy, or it was something that came naturally. And I'd love to start maybe with Stephanie, and just ask you about your relationship with risk. Is it something that you think you were born with? Is it sort of nature or nurture? How would you address your relationship with risk, and how people might thinking about taking a risk might approach that concept?
Yeah, I'll start by saying I definitely is not innate. I honestly, I would say I wouldn't be an entrepreneur if it weren't for my husband. He was the prime example for me, and sort of paving the way and realizing that it can be done. And so I feel like having he could say he was my mentor. So having that person to say, if you make decision A, it's going to lead to this. If you make this other decision, it'll lead to, this other route. So having somebody to talk to about your decisions, I think, is what led me to where I am. Because I don't think I would have been able to do it on my own. I know that about myself, that I wouldn't have been that strong. So finding, whether it's somebody in your personal life or somebody that you can, find through the Alumni Association or whatever it may be, but really talking it out and strategizing with somebody else, I feel like is what helped me a lot.
Wonderful. I don't know if the other panelists have anything to say about whether they're innately risk takers, or is it something they've kind of become comfortable with?
Thank you, Andres. I really love this question. And I think that, like you said, sometimes we talk about success, but no one really knows the journey and how painful it can be. It's very rewarding, but there's some moments where you question yourself in the mirror. Did I make the right decision? And I can't tell you the amount of times that I've cried on my couch because I didn't have the funding, because I didn't get the location I wanted, because things aren't working out the way I wanted them to. And I think that when times get tough, I like to ask myself the question, compared to what, right? And I find a lot of motivation in knowing my grandmother's story. I'm a proud daughter of immigrant parents. And so I think of this woman who came to a country, left everything she knew and everybody she knew behind, because of this vision that she wholeheartedly believed in. Didn't know the language, took 3 buses to work, 7 mouths to feed. And I think, compared to what am I scared about? Talk about risk. And so I find a lot of strength in that, in a lot of my ancestors, and I carry that with me. And so, my resiliency, I don't think was innate. I think that it came from having these close relationships with my grandparents, my parents, hearing their stories and finding strength in them and motivation. So I think that that's where that came from.
I would say the same. I think growing up as an immigrant child with an immigrant family in a low-income socioeconomic community and household, you realize that your parents and people around you are doing the most, and you start also becoming somewhat of a resourceful and person that thinks on your toes. That's for me. I think I had always a little bit of that risk taker, but not to the extreme that I do have now. I would have to also, similar to Stephanie, I think Carissa, have a strong partner. And with my partner, he also made a very big pivot and took a gamble on himself. Like, you take a bet on yourself ultimately when you make these big pivots, and no one else believes in it. Maybe the closest people around you, but you yourself have to believe in it the most. And when that inside of you is the strongest yes, everything that kind of comes at you doesn't really quite matter. So if you have a strong sense of self, a strong conviction in your North Star, I think nothing can stop you from reaching that goal, owning yourself. And that, I know that sounds a little cliche, but at the end of the day, it has made all the difference to making that pivot. And it is scary and it is tough. You don't always get the call, you don't always get the project that you want or whatever it may be, but knowing that despite this adversity, you're going to push through and you're going to find your way. And no doesn't mean no, it just means no, it means there's another way. Like, I'm going to knock another door, I'm going to find another resource. No doesn't mean the bucket stops here. Like, you keep going till you find that yes, and you know that you will. And that's what keeps me going. And I think that's what I come to realize. It's gonna be my like path to success, not giving up on myself.
Wonderful. Thank you all for that. I'm going to start again with Stephanie about another question that was in the chat, having to do with imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome, I think, affects all of us, but when you hear stories of success, you're always hearing from people that have put themselves out there, right, and have been in situations where there's not a lot of other people that look like them, that maybe have their same journey, because it is a unique journey, and it's one, as I think Kimberly said, is one that you own, but it is sometimes a lonely one. Stephanie, what can you say about your relationship with imposter syndrome, and any advice you have for folks in the audience that are experiencing it?
Yeah, I think there's a simple answer to this one for me, which is you should really strongly know what you know, but most importantly, know what you don't know. And if you'll know if you are an expert in your field, right? If other people listen to you, are they going to take something away from what you have to say? In your respective field, I think you should know if you still have a lot of work to do to sort of, reach the highest ladder, so to speak, or if you feel like you've attained a set of skills that make you an expert in your field, right? And it shouldn't matter the color of your skin, how you grew up, your background. If you're an expert in your field, you're an expert in your field, period. And so I feel like that's, I know that in my first business, I felt that way working with seniors. I studied gerontology. I attained all of these skills by working in the field for 4+ years. And then I started my business in that field, gathering all the knowledge that I had acquired, listening to my clients and knowing their needs and their wants. And I knew that I understood my field well enough to start my own business. And so I feel like, that imposter syndrome, it's just a sneaky brain, exercise that happens because of us being human. But it's really easy to ignore for me, because I know that I know what I know and I know what I don't know in my field. So that's how I'd answer
that. Kimberly, I'm really curious about your answer to the question about imposter syndrome. You're in a very kind of rarefied air just statistically, when you look at women who are in tech and then Latinas in tech. I know the data, and it's not good. So how do you deal with that?
Sure, I would say it doesn't go away, but it gets better. It's something similar to the exercise that you have to be practicing. And to that point of it, it's not a good yeah, it's not necessarily favorable to women, let alone women of color. I recently spoke to a colleague who is part of a bigger company than I am, and his engineering team is made up of 30 engineers, and out of those 30, only 3 of them are women. So it's a tough world out there, and most of them are white, and most of them are male, and most of them have degrees in computer science, and so the odds are not necessarily in your favor. But like I think it goes down to being prepared, being ready, being knowledgeable, and knowing what you know and what you don't know, similar to what Stephanie shared, and also knowing that you might not know the answer, but you know how to get there. Like you're resourceful. You know how. In my case, I do a lot of coding, so I know that the answer is out there somewhere, and I Google a lot, and I do Stack Overflow, and it's just there's an ample amount of resources, and I talk to other engineers, and I'm not gonna just stop at not knowing. I'm gonna go and find the answer because I know where to get it. So it's one of those things that it doesn't go away all that 100%. I think it comes up and it creeps up, but you have to check yourself. And I think what, like I shared earlier, I had done 3 years of therapy, and some of that comes to the idea of how do you honor your experience? How do you honor what you bring to the table? How do you, share your whole self to a place that is not just X, Y, and Z of what's being said that is more valuable than what you bring. So honoring that in every space that I go, like showing up and being there fully, like myself, has paid a lot of dividends. And I think not only am I strong in my technical skills, but I emphasize my soft skills and strong communication, because in development, not only knowing the code, but talking to the higher ups and other individuals about what this code means into their business makes all the difference for them to take on your project or not. So that's what I would say. I would say it gets better with time. And as you grow older and build more experiences, your arsenal of tools, you as a person become fuller and more strong, and whatever other people think of you or not, that doesn't quite matter.
Wonderful. Krista, do you have anything to add?
I do, Andres. Thank you. Like Stephanie and Kimberly, I do agree that being a constant student of your business is absolutely important. I study to this day, whether it's financial literacy, financial planning, or what's the latest trend in cocktails, like I'm constantly learning. And, like Kimberly said, it doesn't ever really go away. It's just learning to manage it, right? So, when I first started my business, I was 26 years old. And this was during a time where it was a very heavily white male dominated industry. I remember going to a conference, and I think there was like 400 agents from all over the United States, and probably 4 of us were women, and I was the only woman of color. As a matter of fact, somebody asked me for cream for their coffee because they thought I was hotel staff. So it was just kind of those moments where you're just kind of like, oh my God, am I supposed to be in this space? But I am this strong believer that confidence always wins, right? The most confident person always wins. So how do we take small moments to just build our confidence? Because I can't say that I was always this confident person, right? Yeah, I was very shy. I was in band. I was a little nerdy. But I just started kind of looking back at my journey and thinking like, well, hell yeah, I did that. And I overcame that. And I think that one thing that's beautiful to be able to say on this panel in particular is that y'all got into UCLA as women of color. Like that is a huge accomplishment in itself. And think about what that means and what journey it took for you to get there, and find some confidence in that. And then every moment that you can just like build that confidence. And I always ask too, like, if they can do it, then why not me? If they can do it, then why not me? And so it's just kind of building on your knowledge, building on that confidence, and showing up like you own that room. It's easier said than done, but it takes consistent practice and belief and what you're feeding your mind. I read this book. I'm big on motivational books, but one of them was talking about you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. This is science. Like this is real evidence that's been studied. It's not just someone's opinion. You are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. If you can't change your friends, change your friends, because you're going to level up. What they're talking about, you're going to talk about. If they're performing higher, you're going to perform higher. And you're going to learn from each other, and you're going to feed off of each other, and you're going to support each other's vision and get each other to the next level. So I think that that is all something that I would really highly recommend for folks who are facing imposter syndrome. Surround yourself with like-minded individuals, build that confidence, and never stop being a student of your business.
So motivational, all of you. Thank you so much. I'm going to end with a question that hopefully will not go down a huge rabbit trail, but as leaders and as folks that have dealt with a lot of uncertainty, including Carissa, you mentioned like the pandemic and how, you know, that threw, and Stephanie too, that threw like a big loop, you know, put everybody through a big, into a big loop. A lot of people are saying now that AI and kind of this shift in technology is another kind of transformational moment. I'm going to start with, of course, Kimberly, because she's kind of lives in this world, you know, without getting too technical. How do you see kind of this next kind of phase of the economy, of industry, and what kind of words of advice can you share about like what your approach is to all that's happening around technology?
It is very transformational. I'm no expert, but I definitely am in the I'm like in the field, and it is going to change a lot of things. I do think that's going to happen. So what degree and how fast, that's something to be determined. There is going to be, I think as far as software engineering, I think it's just an extra tool we have at our disposal to really just make us more efficient, better engineers or better business folks. I think there's different tools that you can use that AI brings to you, depending on what AI you're focusing on, whether it be self-driving cars, whether it be these large language models, whether it be robotics. There's just an array of different AI tools that are going to be accessible. Will we ever reach general AI where one robot or one entity does everything? I don't know that. That's very, very difficult to accomplish. Would we see it in our lifetime? Who knows? I personally don't see it happening, but will it be individually in different fields? I do see that. So I think you just have to, in my case as a software engineer, I've been told, well, you want to be the engineer that knows how to talk to the AI. So don't be scared of the AI, be scared of the engineer that knows how to talk to the AI, because that engineer is going to be well equipped. So yeah, I just do my research, continue building my skill set, and be prepared for what's to come, because change is happening. To what degree, I really don't know.
Great. I don't know, Stephanie or Chris, if you have anything to add to that.
I could say something, Andres. I mean, with AI, I think that, you know, a lot of people can say there's a lot of bad to it. There's a lot of bad to it. But sometimes there's things that it's going to happen. It's just going to, AI's here. It's going to move forward, whether you're with it or without it. It's better to adapt and see, how can I make this a positive, in my case, for my business? And there's things that I have been already incorporating AI for my business. You know, like it's saving me a huge amount of time when it comes to newsletters or, you know, client communication on emails, whatever the case is. It's just, how do I incorporate it to set my business ahead, utilizing some of the technology and AI that's come out, right? And then, you know, looking also at some investment opportunities. I'm a money girl, so how is AI an investment opportunity for myself and my community? And how do I promote that in a way that's moral and ethical and positions everyone to win off of it, right? So both business and investment, I think that we have to figure out ways to incorporate it and adapt to the changes that are ahead of us.
I was just going to say exactly what Carissa said, and that it's not going to go away. So definitely try to find a way to adapt and make it work for whatever situation you're in.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your great answers, both to Dr. Gonzalez's questions and to the audience's questions. And I'll turn it over to Gio now to close out the event.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks to the people who came and saw these beautiful panelists speak their mind, their truth, and their experiences. One last thing I want to say before I let you guys go. This video will be recorded and be on YouTube. I would give it about 2 or 3 days. And then, yeah, you can share it with your friends. Sorry, one last thing after that. We're going to have another part 2 to this series. There's going to be a lot of good individuals who are going to be, showing their experiences, and we're going to have more diversity. So please come to the next one, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a good evening.